So this is the Leagoo T5C, a very special budget smartphone priced around 100 euros, but often on sale at GearBest for only 90 euros, so it's very cheap. And this thing is very special because it boasts an x86 processor instead of an ARM processor. Yes, Intel stopped manufacturing smartphone SoCs, but they're actually licensing the architecture to third parties now. And Spreadtrum is a company that actually does x86 chips now. And well, the Leagoo T5C uses such a Spreadtrum processor. So let's have a first look. So the phone itself is partially made out of metal. The center part here is metal, and then we have some plastic caps here on the top and the bottom. The phone is pretty slim, as you can see, but also surprisingly sturdy. You need quite a lot of force to bend it a little bit. So build quality definitely is better there than on the Xiaomi Redmi 5 and Xiaomi Redmi 5 Plus, in my opinion. So let's have a look at what we have there. On the rear, on the top, we have the dual camera, which you shouldn't expect too much from. It's advertised to be a 13 megapixel camera plus a 2 megapixel secondary one, but the secondary one isn't really used here, as it is always the case with Chinese dual camera phones, especially in the cheap price categories. Then I don't know what the heck this is. Probably they want to pretend that this thing boasts laser autofocus or something like that. Of course it doesn't. Then we have a dual LED dual tone flash there. Smart bokeh camera expert, it says there. Well, that's not really the case. And on the bottom we have some CE sign and this textured plastic thingy. Then on the right side we have the hardware buttons, which are a volume rocker and a power button, which again is textured. They sit in place very tightly, don't rattle. Really good quality. It looks like they are made from metal, at least it feels like that. On the top we have nothing, but don't worry, it still has a headphone jack, it's just on the bottom. Then we have the SIM tray on the left, which takes either 2 Nano SIM cards or 1 Nano SIM card and 1 micro SD card. And then here on the bottom, the aforementioned headphone jack, a voice microphone, the speaker opening, and a OTG capable micro USB port. On the front we have a home button with a fingerprint scanner. What's kind of unfortunate is that it isn't used for navigation. You can only trigger the Google Assistant with it. And there are also no touch buttons next to it, so the whole thing is controlled using on-screen buttons. Then we have a standard 16:9 5.5 inch Full HD screen, and on the very top we have the earpiece, some sensors, a front LED flash, and of course the front camera, which is a 5 megapixel unit. The screen is okay considering the price tag. It's not the best screen I have seen yet. It could be a little brighter for outdoor use. It could have more intense colors, and yes, it also could have a better contrast ratio. But I won't complain about that. For 100 euros, this is just totally fine in my opinion. It's a fully laminated display, as you can see, and the viewing angles are also just fine for my taste. The touch screen works okay, it's pretty precise. Typing on it is really no problem, even if you type fast. There is a bit of an input lag, as you can see, but that's pretty much standard for such cheap phones. But it's still acceptable, it's not too bad. So all in all, this 5-point touchscreen isn't bad. So the processor inside there is a Spreadtrum SC9853i, which boasts 8 x86 processor cores based on the Intel Goldmont architecture. It's a 40 nanometer chipset and it clocks at 1.8 gigahertz, and the GPU they use inside of there is a Mali T820. That's a bit unfortunate. Some more GPU power wouldn't have hurt. I don't know if it's a multi-core GPU. I guess it's a MP2 GPU, so dual core, but I'm not exactly sure about that. And the Leagoo T5C also packs 32 GB of internal memory, so that's not all too much, but remember that we are moving in a 100 euros price tag here, and we only have 3 GB of RAM, which isn't a lot, but for basic multitasking it's still fine in my opinion. Performance wise, the phone performs pretty good for such a cheap one, most of the time. I say most of the time because it isn't always the case. It really depends if the processor runs hot or not. If it's cool, you have a really good performance, it runs very snappy, but if the processor is hot, it starts to throttle, and then it can stutter or hang sometimes, which is kind of unfortunate, but wow, that's what you get with the x86 architecture, right? So I can actually show you the thermal throttling of the processor under load, which happens very quickly. So here you see the throttle test, and it shuts off like 3 to 4 cores starting from 2 minutes of full load, so that happens very fast. As you can see here, it throttles to about 70% of its maximum performance, and you definitely do notice that. Still, the performance is fine in my opinion. Haven't been annoyed by it yet, and actually gaming is possible as well to a certain degree. Asphalt Extreme runs fine. Osbroken Kingdom stutters a lot, except you put down the graphics to a minimum. Dead Trigger 2 on the other hand runs fine. Unkilled, haven't tested that one yet, will do that, and we'll show this in the performance demo. What's kind of sad with the Leagoo T5C is that it doesn't pack a lot of sensors. It lists a lot in the sensors category, as you can see, but it only has an accelerometer, a light sensor and a proximity sensor. All the other stuff isn't there, so it doesn't have a compass or gyroscope. So if you need that, this phone isn't for you. But at least it has got a single color notification LED above the screen, which can light up in blue. So at least that is there. Software wise, we are running Android 7.0 there with a security patch of December 2017, so that's not totally outdated. But I hope it will be updated to the January or February security patch with the next OTA update. So far I haven't got an OTA update. I have flashed the phone to the latest version because out of the box this phone shipped with a firmware that wasn't capable of receiving OTA updates for some reason. So I downloaded the current firmware from NeedROM and flashed it using the flashing tool for this chipset, which wasn't too much of a problem. The software is mostly bug-free, but the camera app is very buggy, but we will come to that later. The internal speaker of this phone is something I have mixed feelings about. Basically, it doesn't sound too bad. It has some pretty strong basses sometimes, but it really depends on what kind of music you are playing. Sometimes it really distorts on some genres and just has too much of heights and mids and just eats up all the bass. And then it sounds really unpleasant, but other times it can sound really good. So that's kind of strange. I don't get why that is. The Headphone Jack sounds surprisingly decent. They're advertising some dedicated audio chipset there. I can't confirm this, of course, but it definitely could be there. It doesn't sound too bad. Output is pretty strong and very well mixed in my opinion. Something that could be better is the fingerprint scanner. It sometimes is a little bit unreliable and slow, other times it works fine, so this kind of changes. So as you can see now I have a failed unlocking attempt, so yeah, it's not totally unusable, but it's by far not a perfect fingerprint scanner. Sometimes when the phone was in standby for a longer time, it can take quite some seconds to wake up. This should be optimized in my opinion. Then reception quality appears to be pretty good on this phone, not perfect, but mobile network reception is great. Wi-Fi reception quality is also very good. I can move one floor below the router and have really no difference in throughput. But what's kind of sad is that it just supports BGN Wi-Fi, so that single band 2.4 GHz and reaches a maximum of around 40 to 50 Mbit per second. So if you want faster Wi-Fi, again, this phone isn't for you. The GPS performance is a little bit disappointing. I haven't done any tracking or navigation yet, so I can't tell you how it performs in real life. I just did a quick GPS test using the GPS test app. And as you can see, it didn't get too many satellites and the signal strength is kind of mediocre. Of course, that doesn't mean that it will perform bad. Please wait for the full review to learn more about that. Regarding the camera, the stock application is crap. It looks pretty nice. Actually, it's not a standard camera application. It's something of their own, but it's really buggy, especially in low light. If you use the flash and try to take a picture at night, the camera can't focus because during focusing the flash doesn't turn on, so it has no light to get a sharp picture, and then when it finally takes a picture and turns on the flash, it will get very blurry. And well, the bokeh mode in there is also just the usual fake, and in general the picture quality of the stock camera app isn't good at all. However, the camera itself isn't too bad. So if you are using another camera application, for example Open Camera, you get much better results, especially in low light conditions. It's a difference like day and night. Let me just open up a picture for comparison's sakes. There we go, for example this one. This has been taken using the stock camera app, and as you can see, it looks really blurry. There is some fogginess in the picture and the detail is just bad. So that's of course because it can't focus properly and because the picture quality just sucks with the stock app. And now let's have a look at a picture taken with the Open Camera application. It's the very same picture, just with another camera application. As you can see, the colors already look much more vivid, much more intense. And now can you see that? Tons of detail, really sharp picture and much less noise. I mean, that's really a huge difference, and that's really the case in pretty much all images you take with the Open Camera application. So clearly Open Camera is the best choice for the Leagoo T5C. So that's about camera. What about battery life? We have 3000 milliamps inside of there. I already verified the capacity and it's true. But of course, x86 just isn't very efficient. You already have seen that with the thermal throttling. It creates much more heat than an ARM processor at 40 nanometers would, and that also means it eats up more energy, and you notice that because battery life isn't really bad, but it's not impressive either. As you can see so far, I've got an average screen on time of 4 hours 51 minutes. That's enough to get through a day with medium intense usage, but not necessarily enough to get through the evening as well. So I think in the evening you will have to recharge this one. And I myself, as a power user, so far haven't always been able to get through a day. Mostly I did, but when I used the camera a lot, and had the screen brightness set to maximum for a large amount of time, I didn't get through a day with this one. So yeah, it could be better. A larger battery wouldn't have hurt. 4000 milliamps probably would have fit inside of there with a slightly bigger body, and that really would have made a big difference. But yeah, things are like they are. So if you are not a power user, it should probably be enough for you, but don't expect any wonders there. So yeah, I think that's all for this first impressions video. I will keep testing this one as a daily driver and then provide you with the usual full in-depth review. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching and see you then. Bye bye.